In this video, I want to talk about one problem that I see in the way that many students approach pure sequencing games. So as you can see, I've already put together all of the rules in the game on the left into a main diagram over here. And I'm going to assume that if you studied a little bit for games, you know the basics of how to read this chain, and you don't have any questions about how I turned the setup on the left here into this main diagram. So let's get right into the issue. So here's the problem. If I were to ask you whether or not A can go in the fourth spot, here's how some students would think through that question. They would actually try to come up with one possibility that they can visualize where A can go fourth. Here's what I mean. They'll actually go, well, I guess F could go first, and then M could go second, and then maybe I could put the B third. Yeah, it looks like the A could go fourth, because then after the A, I guess you'd put like O, I, and then K, Q. Yeah, that looks like A can go fourth. That is an absolutely terrible way to think through this question, because it wastes time, and it's also very prone to mistakes. So much time is being spent coming up with a specific order that doesn't matter. So here's the better way to think through whether or not A can go fourth when you have all of the rules connected in one ordering chain. I'm going to look at this A here, and I'm going to be focused on the constraints. I'm not going to be thinking about, let me come up with one possibility. Can I see how A could go fourth? No, let's focus on constraints. What letters have to come before the A, and what letters have to come after the A? Well, I know that the F and the M both have to come before the A. So if you put A in fourth, would you have enough room for the F and the M before it? Well, yeah, because there would be 3 open spots. And by the way, I wouldn't actually write out the A in 4. I'd try to visualize it if I can. So there's nothing stopping A from going fourth on the left side of this diagram. Let's focus on what has to come after A. O has to come after A, and K has to come after A. So that's 2 letters that must come after A. No other letter has to come after A. Now there's plenty of room to fit the O and the K somewhere in the back end here. So there's nothing stopping A from going fourth on the right side of the diagram. That means A can go fourth. It would be really inefficient to try to think about what particular order might the letters be in 5, 6, 7, 8. That does not matter at all. So if this way of thinking through whether or not letters can go in a particular spot is intuitive to you, then great. Start thinking about it, start implementing it. But I know that for a lot of students, there's still some lingering concern here about how we can be so confident. How can we be so confident that A can go fourth unless we actually try to come up with an order for 5, 6, 7, and 8? Because aren't there all these other letters here, the B and the I and the K? How do we order those? So if you are asking that kind of question, I think the issue is you don't really understand what this diagram represents. Remember, this diagram was a combination of every single rule in the game. And so that means any constraint of the game is going to be captured in this diagram. So when you look at this A here, and you look at the only letters that must have a relationship to A, which are the F and the M, and the O and the K, if those are the only letters that must have a relationship to the A, then those are the only letters that could possibly prevent A from going in a particular spot. The other letters here, the B, the I, and the Q, they don't have to have any relationship to the A. They don't have to come before. They don't have to come after. And so that means unless we're given a new rule or a new condition, these 3 letters are never going to affect A. They're never going to put a constraint on where the A can go. Now, if we wanted to, we could figure out potential places that each of these letters could go, but that's not necessary if the question we're interested in is whether or not A can go fourth. You just have to focus on what constrains A. If you've satisfied those constraints, then the A can go fourth. So let's practice this idea again. Can I go in the 5th spot? Now the wrong way to think about this is, well, yeah, I guess I could put M and then F and then A and then B. Yeah, it looks like the I can go 5th because I can just put O, K, Q after. Yeah, that works. Again, that is a complete waste of time because we spent all this time thinking about potential orders for all of these other letters that don't matter. If we're just interested in the question of whether or not I can go fifth, then the only issue are, what are the constraints on I? So here's the better way to think about this. Well, let's see. How many letters must come before I? I have the B and I have the M. So that's 2 letters that absolutely must come before the I. The A and the F are not connected to the I, it's only the M and the B. So there's plenty of space to put the M and the B somewhere to the left of I if you put the I in 5. How many letters have to come after I? K and Q, that's it. Only 2 letters absolutely must come after I, and there's going to be enough room because there's 3 spots. So we have proven that I can go fifth, and we do not need to figure out a potential order to prove that I can go fifth. We just proved it. The fact that we've evaluated the only constraints on the I, which are the M and the B and the K and the Q, the fact that we have determined we can satisfy those constraints is what proves to us that I can go fifth. So that's one small tip in pure sequencing games that I hope you find helpful. It's just a small and relatively subtle thing, but it can save you a lot of time and it can also help you avoid mistakes. Now I do want to warn you that the only reason we were able to be so confident that the A could go fourth or that the I could go fifth in that analysis is because all of the rules were connected onto one chain. If we had other rules that we were not able to connect onto this chain, then we actually would have to be a little bit more careful. All right. So the technique I talked about in this video, it's just something to apply when all the rules are connected in one chain.